Oh my goodness, ladies and gentlemen, greetings from Somerville on location in Las Vegas, Nevada, Super Bowl week. How exciting this is. My goodness, my guest today is Clayton Fletcher. Welcome to the studio, Clayton.
Yeah,
Hey,
nice
all right.
studio you got here.
It's
Hey, where else would you rather be for the week of the Super Bowl than Las Vegas? I mean, there's so much excitement and energy here.
if you're not going to the Super Bowl itself, I'd actually rather be in Vegas, actually.
Yeah.
Super Bowl, to me, like crowds and all the bars and everything. At Vegas, you can kind of like, it's the joy and entertainment of it, but you don't have to like be in a stadium.
Many years ago, I was in Miami when the Super Bowl was happening.
Really?
I didn't go to the Super Bowl. I've never been to a Super Bowl.
Okay.
But, man, the crowds were crazy. Everyone's drunk.
Yeah.
People are a little too pumped up. I feel like in Vegas, some people here, believe it or not, don't even care about the
They
Super
don't.
Bowl. They don't care
even
at all.
Absolutely. No, they couldn't tell you who's playing.
They
Some
don't-
of them. Yeah, no. You can get away from it. You want to just go to another side of a thing or get away from it all. Exactly. You
Yeah.
can, if you want to be a part of it, you can find it. I was actually walking around today. I went to the mall. I went to a few other casinos just check, and they have like, we have the big game party. We have the crazy party. You know, and I was like, it's the last place I'd want to be is in the middle of some, just anyone from the public can come and scream. But anyway, that's not why we're here today. It is exciting Super Bowl week, though. We are here because you are a friend, a fellow comedian, and I dare say, you can correct me, a professional poker player. I wrote down pro poker player, and then should we put it in quotes? Is it professional sometimes?
I don't know. You know, when people ask me sometimes, are you a professional player? I mean, I've made a lot of money playing poker.
That sounds
And-
like a pro to me.
And I take the game very seriously.
Okay.
But I prefer to think of myself as an amateur because the word amateur comes from the Latin for love.
Oh my goodness.
So the reason I play poker is not because I want to do that professionally. Like I didn't go to school to get an MBA or something professional. Like I hate the word
Right.
professional. You know what I mean?
I
Like,
didn't know you were going to get mushy on us here.
yeah, I love to play poker and I love to do comedy. So as far as I'm concerned, like I make a living at both.
Okay.
Sometimes more one than the other, right?
Yeah, I know the feeling
Yeah.
well. Yes, I'm a
Yeah.
professional comedian at times.
Right. Yeah,
This
I mean,
week, yes.
Some days I'm relying more on the poker to pay the bills. But yeah, I mean, I think I feel like the distinction between who's a pro, who's a semi-pro, who's an amateur. I'll just say, just call me an amateur till I die.
An
because
amateur.
if you do what you love, you never work. You know that old expression, right?
Sure.
I strongly believe in that. So I
Okay.
play because I love it. I happen to be pretty good at it. I finished twice in the top 100 in the World Series of Poker.
That is unbelievable to me. I want to talk about all of this. Let's start from the very beginning. How and when did you first start playing poker? Were you messing with card tricks when you were a kid? Was it a fascination with math at some point in your life? Yeah.
Maybe this is why the answer I give has to do with love. My
Okay.
mother taught me how to play poker.
Is that right?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I have two brothers, and my dad didn't get that much into it because he was a jazz musician. So
Okay.
like, many nights, like after dinner, he would go down and practice, music. That's
Sure.
what he loved,
Right.
But my mother would be like, "All right, you guys, we're done eating. Do you want to deal the cards?" And like we would play.
That is hysterical.
Yeah, she would check raise my allowance. I mean, like,
That's great.
yeah.
That is amazing. Was her history with it? Was it just she enjoyed it? It was
Yeah, she was into it. She had read books on the subject, and she enjoyed it.
fascinating.
And actually, there are many others. There's actually a Fletcher family home poker game in Baltimore where I grew up. It still goes to this day.
Really?
And they're all hyper competitive. My uncles, my aunts, and all their friends. And they'll come over. They get like 4 or 5 tables going sometimes in the
That is
basement.
hysterical.
Yeah, so
It's
just
in
kinda-
the blood.
It's in the blood.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
true. And like you said, the word amateur means love of or love for, which I didn't know. So it sounds like they're all true lovers of it.
Yeah, like that's amore. It's the same root. Yeah, it's the same root as amateur.
That is hysterical. Okay, so you grew up with it. You were familiar with it. At what point did you start to say, "Hey, I might be good at this"?
Well, I started playing a little bit more seriously. I had a job at a theme park, Busch Gardens.
Oh wow!
I was a singer dancer.
Look at you
in a
showing
theme
off.
park. I don't know if this is showing off. It's actually embarrassing.
And I'm assuming there was no love of that.
Well,
that was
I mean, I was shaking my booty and wearing sequins, and
Now that's what I should be talking about.
Yeah. We had Mondays off.
Okay.
So we worked 6 days a week,
Right.
doing 5 shows a day, 30-minute shows. So it's not like as bad as it sounds. But so every Sunday, because we had Monday off, the cast would get together for a big poker game at my house.
Very cool.
And we didn't just play Texas Hold'em, which is mostly what I play now.
Right.
We play all different varieties of poker. And it was kind of my idea. It started very small. Like I invited a couple of the guys from the show, like a couple of musicians and a couple of the singers. Like, do you guys want to come over and we'll just play a friendly game of cards?
Right.
And as I started to enjoy it more, like the way I am, the way my brain is wired, if I enjoy something, I want to learn as much as I possibly can about it.
Okay.
So it started with, I like doing this. It's really fun. And I never made money because I would buy like $100 worth of food and drinks for the poker game. And we'd play a $10 buy-in.
Right.
You know, if I had the best night of my life, I'm not going to cover the expense. But it was more like I wanted to do something fun.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I really enjoyed it. But in the process, I was reading books, a couple of books that my mom had given me and some stuff like that.
Okay.
Nowadays, there's training sites and there's all kinds of ways to learn.
Yeah. You could
But
play
back
online,
then, it was like old school. You had to go to the library.
Well, and what is the skill set? I mean, what do you need to be good at to play poker well?
Well, I mean, nowadays, to really excel in the game, you have to have a solid foundation in mathematics. Obviously,
Okay.
you need to know like what the odds are of what you want to happen or not happen.
Okay.
That's all important. But I think there are other skills that are actually kind of parallel to the skills in comedy. Like once you have the math down and your fundamentals are solid, now the next step is trying to figure out what your opponent wants.
Okay.
And I liken it to comedy. Like when I go up on stage, I try to get a read
Yeah.
of the audience,
Yeah.
right? Like, hey, what do they want? And then you give it to them.
Right.
But in poker, you find out what they want, and then you disappoint them.
That sounds like all my relationships. My dating life.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and by what they want, though, what? And I'll say I've played poker. I know how to play only from like most people. You watch it on TV. You go, oh, okay, I get it. I played with a few times with friends in New York. We'd play games, and I became very impatient. As I think I told you, it was just like I'm going all in. I don't know how to. There's too much. But what do you mean? What I want? If I'm playing you right now in a game, what do you mean? What do I want?
So say you and I are playing in a game, and you make a big bet,
Yeah.
and all the cards are out.
Right.
So it's binary.
Right.
Either you want me to call,
Right.
or you want me to fold.
Okay.
There are no other. Well,
Right.
I guess you could possibly want me to
Right.
raise.
I'm trying to either take your money or scare
Right.
you away.
Yeah. And so every bet kind of has a purpose.
Okay.
When you bet, you either want your opponent to say I call, or you want your opponent to say I fold.
I'm out of here.
Now I'm oversimplifying because
Sure.
I understand it's not a poker
But
audience.
I barely
right?
understood
That's
that.
basically
so
what
that's
it
good.
comes down to. So what I'm trying to figure out is how does Michael generally behave when he wants me to call, and how does Michael generally behave when he wants me to fold?
Okay.
Right? So everybody's a little bit different, but there are some patterns in human behavior. Like when we're sitting at the poker table, we all know part of the job is to try to deceive each other.
Sure. In
Right.
terms of your behavior, physical actions,
Right.
you're okay.
Yeah, so if you're bluffing me, right, that means you want me to fold because you
Right.
don't have anything. So you're betting pretending you have something when you don't.
Okay.
So I had to figure out who's acting.
This is the part that totally fascinates
Yeah,
me.
yeah.
So you're
And-
literally reading people's, like, do I lean forward? Do I lean back? Do I touch my face? Do I blink?
All of those things.
Wow.
And you're an outgoing, gregarious guy, so maybe like 99% of the time at the table, you're joking around with everybody and having
Sure.
fun and like life of the party, and then all of a sudden you get really quiet.
That would be me. I'd lock down.
Right? So why is Michael so quiet right now? Right? So I kind of have a baseline of how you normally behave.
Yeah.
And then as I study you, as the hours go by, as we're playing together, I'm building the information base in my brain
Wow.
to try to figure out like what is different. And so
What-
I'll watch you in hands that we're not playing together.
And so you're always paying attention.
Yeah, you
so
have to
even if you
study
folded,
everybody.
you're watching him going, what's he doing?
Yeah, you don't get a minute off at the table. You
Oh,
have to pay
wow.
attention. If you really want to do this and make a lot of money at it, it's just all your brain has to be concentrating on every little detail.
So it is exhausting then.
Yeah.
Mentally taxing.
Yeah, and the World Series of Poker is if you make it to the final table, it's going to be 10 days of 12 hours, 12 hours a day. So
Wow.
I never made it quite that far, but I've been in the top 100 a few times. They get like 8,000 players a year.
Well,
so.
let's talk about that. That is, I mean, to someone who doesn't know much about World Series of Poker, see it on ESPN. It's the big thing.
Yeah, the big
You've
thing.
not only been there, but you have done well.
Yeah.
Tell us about that experience. How'd you get in? You buy in?
Yeah. So
Okay.
it costs $10,000 to play.
And you have to
And anybody who has $10,000 can play.
Can come play.
And so you'll see professional actors, athletes.
Okay.
Our friend Brad Garrett, right? You'll see
It
people
comes
like
in
that.
place, does he?
And
Okay.
all those guys will be there. But then there'll also be like, the best poker players in the world will be there.
Okay.
And then they have something called satellites, which is a smaller buy-in where the prize is you're going to win a seat into the main event.
Okay.
So you get a really good mix of all different kinds of players.
Yeah.
So the first job when you're in a tournament like that is you have 8 opponents, right?
Okay.
So it's 9-handed.
Okay.
I have to figure out who at this table is an amateur.
Yeah.
And not in the sense that I mean it, but like this guy doesn't know what he's doing.
Okay.
Right?
Okay. Right.
And who here is in over his head. He's never played a $10,000 tournament before.
Right.
Who's nervous and who's like super comfortable. This is what they do every
This is
year
what
in
they
July. Yeah.
It's almost again like comedy. Like, is this a new comic? Is he a veteran comic? You can just tell pretty quickly. Can you
Yeah.
pick up on it right away? Like the who's who?
Yeah, there are things that will be a dead giveaway.
Like what? Like what? Like a total rookie. I'd just be sweating and be giggling and be useless.
Yeah, so a big part of it is that like who seems like they're kind of giddy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, believe me, Michael, everybody who plays in the main event is excited for it.
I'm sure.
I mean, that is the Super Bowl
Yeah.
of poker, right?
Yeah,
it's
it.
the World Series of poker. So
Yeah.
it's there's no bigger. I mean, there are tournaments that cost more to play,
Right.
but this is what we all consider like the main event, the real championship. This is the pinnacle.
It is it.
It'd be like a golfer winning the Masters if
Yeah.
you win this
And
tournament.
it's big money when you win, right? It's
Oh,
millions
my
of
goodness,
dollars.
yeah, $10 million
Yeah.
last year.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so the prize pool is, of course, based on how many participants they get.
Right.
And so, but it's usually in the somewhere between 7,000 and 8,000 players.
Okay.
Yeah, so they get a lot of people coming in. So if you do the math, like 7,000 times 10,000 is $70 million.
Good Lord.
Right? Yeah, so it's a lot of money.
So now you come to town. You said I'm signing up. I'm playing in this. Here's my 10 G's. Now you have to come to Vegas where you don't live and find a place to stay. Correct?
Right.
So you do get like an Airbnb? Do you? I mean, I assume you have to find a place. You can't stay in a nice hotel every night, right?
Yeah, that would cost a fortune.
Yeah.
Although during the World Series, if you're playing, then you could stay there for a little bit less. They give you a
that's
casino
nice.
rate or a tournament rate,
Okay.
stuff like that. But a lot of times, what a lot of guys do, I've never done this, but what a lot of guys do is they'll just get a house together.
That makes sense.
Sometimes, like 9 or 10 guys will be living in this huge
Right.
Vegas mansion, basically with all the trimmings.
That's
But-
crazy.
Yeah. But I'm actually, believe it or not, mostly an introvert. So.
Oh, you really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's just when I'm in the mood, I'm there, but I needed my downtime. I need some alone time.
I
so-
can imagine. Yeah.
Especially after a long day of playing, I don't want to come home and like hear about how your day went and how his day went. I just don't.
9 different dudes telling. Yeah.
I have 10,000 hands in my head that I'm trying to think through, and I don't. My brain is full.
Yeah, it's the last thing you want. No,
Yeah, so-
exactly.
So I usually either get I'll rent a small studio apartment or
Right.
I'll take advantage of the deals the hotels will offer for the players.
Okay.
So
Okay.
yeah, and there's all kinds of action around town in the summer. That's when the World Series poker takes place.
Yeah.
So it's very busy here. Even if you're not, the World Series takes place at the Rio.
Yeah.
But the Wynn has a thing, and the Venetian has
Sure,
a thing.
everyone's
It's
doing
like
something.
it's poker heaven.
Yeah.
If you're a poker player, you're in Vegas in the summer. Or just
It's just what you do.
You
Now,
have
and
to.
it lasts for how long? The World Series.
yeah. So the main event is 10 days, but the whole thing is more like the Olympics.
Right.
It's 7 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah. So
And do those pro players, those top players, Daniel Negreanu,
Daniel
those,
Negreanu.
do they have to go through from the very first table, or do they get like a bye?
Yeah, I mean, for each tournament, everybody who buys in, you're going to play.
You're starting right away.
Yeah,
So
so
you
we
might
all-
be at a table with one of those
Yeah.
guys in the first round.
Yeah, and I've actually become friendly with Daniel Negreanu.
Is that right? Okay.
Yeah, he's a good guy. He does a lot of charity events, and
Okay.
I've kind of gotten into the circuit of, well, we need a comedian for this poker charity event. So who's better than Clayton?
Perfect.
Yeah. So it's like a really obvious gig for me.
That's
so
a great niche.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you do any poker jokes?
I mean, I have some. But
Yeah.
I have some jokes that I can't do like tonight at Brad Garrett's Comedy Club.
Right.
That I can do at like a poker tournament. So
Okay.
yeah, because
Okay.
they'll get it, right?
They'll understand. Yes, very
Yeah.
specific audience.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So when you have your niche like that, it's like I always wanted to say this, but I knew the audience wouldn't get it.
Right,
And
right.
tonight I can actually
Now
say
they'll
it.
actually
Yeah.
understand.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
So again, as a rookie, tell me some of the things in real life or your friends, like some tells, some obvious, like, dude, you're showing your cards, or you're like you're staring at the wall when you're
Right.
What are some of the more obvious ones you've seen?
Yeah. So now the tells will be more reliable. The more novice your opponent.
Okay.
Right. So a professional player is going to be better at hiding his tells.
Okay.
Right. So
Or even faking some, do you
right.
think?
So
Okay.
that's what I'll do. Like I know what my tells are.
Yeah.
Or I know, obviously, I can't know all of them, but I know what a lot of my tells are, and I just make sure that part of my behavior is that I will do. Suppose, like for example, if the flop is the first 3 cards that come out, right? So at that point, 5 of the 7 possible cards you're going to have.
Right.
So at that point, that's kind of the inflection point in a poker hand.
Gotcha.
So everybody's interested in the flop, like what happens
Right.
when that flop comes down. Do I hit my card or not? Right. That's it. If I don't like what's on the flop, like suppose I have an ace and a queen,
Right.
and the flop is something like 7, 6, 5. Right.
Right.
That's not a good flop for ace.
That doesn't
queen.
help you.
I tend to stare at it,
Nice.
almost like longing that I can make the cards change, and I know that I do that.
Right.
And likewise, suppose I have 7, 7 in my hand, and the flop comes queen 7, 7. And now I all of a sudden have 4 7s.
Yeah.
I tend to look away from the flop, like almost like you don't want to look at the sun, right?
Right.
It's like it's too hot. I can't look at
too
that.
much. Right.
Yeah. So what I've learned is that on certain flops, I promise myself I'm going to stare at this flop no matter what.
No matter what happens.
No matter what it is.
Right.
Right. So we call that reverse tells, or just you're trying to dilute the data base
Sure.
as much as you can, so that if someone's studying me really closely, he might pick up on something, but I'm trying to make sure that information isn't reliable.
Trying to throw him off.
Now
That
the
makes
amateur
sense.
is in over his head. He's not going to be able to do all that,
Right.
Because he's just trying to make sure he knows what he has and think about whether he should bet.
Right. Should I bet
He's
or
not going to be
not?
like, oh, I need to hide my tells, right?
So that seems then like a good person. Like if I were going to play at a table, I'd want a bunch of amateurs, right? Because they don't know what they're doing.
Yeah, I mean the profit from poker comes from
From-
over time. It comes from playing against people who aren't as good as you.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the math part and the skill and the strategy is one thing, but someone who's just giving their money away or betting incorrectly or just stupidly,
Yeah.
that would be me. You'd have all my money.
Well, I mean, put it this way: in the short term, luck is more important,
Yeah.
and in the long term, luck doesn't matter at all.
Right.
So, like, you and I could play a heads-up match right now, right?
Right.
And I'm way better at poker than you are.
Sure.
But the truth is, you have some chance of beating me
Right.
if we play like once or twice.
If I
but
just
if-
get lucky, I get
Right.
some. Okay.
But if I could somehow convince you to sign up to play 100 times or
Right.
1,000 times,
Yeah.
I'm gonna get all the money.
You're
by
going to
the
take
end.
the money.
Yeah.
Okay. I almost am tempted to do that. I kind of just want to, because I think I would just be giggling as he took all my money
True
away. Like,
gambler.
how does he do it? How does he do it? Well, now they do, one of the movies we've talked about is Rounders. It's one of my favorite movies of all time, which is funny because I think a lot of people love the movie, even if they're not poker players, which
Yeah.
I'm not. But that was it's so eye-opening to me for many reasons. One, the illegal rooms. Two, the table, people working together at a table, sort of, and that world exists. Huh? That whole underground circuit, and yeah. Have you ever
Yeah.
played in like a backroom illegal bar or anything?
Yeah, I have to admit, I have dabbled in that world a little
Okay.
bit, and there's a whole scene in New York. The movie Rounders was written by Brian Koppelman,
Okay.
who actually I know,
Oh, really?
and I know him because of comedy.
My goodness.
He did stand up for a little while.
Is that right?
I mean, obviously he's a great writer. He wrote that script, and he also writes, what is that show? Billions on Showtime, which is
yeah.
a
I
really
didn't know
popular
that. Okay.
series. He wrote some other movies like
Okay.
Ocean's 11.
Oh, jeez.
He's all about money,
Yeah.
right? All of the
money
subject,
movies. Yeah.
money movies. And he has writing partners, but he's kind of the main writer.
Okay.
And he's a very big poker fan.
Okay.
Right? So he did a ton of research for Rounders, and as a result, even poker players love Rounders.
Rounders as a movie. Yeah.
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 And also, we owe Brian Koppelman a lot poker players because in 2003, a man named Chris Moneymaker
Yes.
won the World Series of Poker main event. At that time, it paid $2.5 million.
Wow.
And he got his $10,000 buy-in by playing like a $42 satellite on Party Poker.
Wow.
And the only reason he ever signed up for Party Poker, which doesn't really exist in America anymore, we're not going to get into that, but the FBI shut down online gaming around the United States.
Okay.
Prior to that, that was maybe in 1999, I think is the year that Rounders came out.
Okay.
And Chris Moneymaker, who was just like an accountant from Tennessee,
Right.
watched that movie and said, I think I want to try poker. And
Really?
he signed up for an account, started playing these little satellites, had no idea really what he was doing.
Really?
And turned $41 or something into $2.5 million.
Wow.
And after that, there was something that we now call the poker boom.
Yeah.
Which is the fields in poker tournaments went from, relatively small, a couple hundred players. Now it's the 8,000.
Well, anyone can do it, it feels like, right?
Yeah, this guy can win.
Wow.
And his name was Chris Moneymaker.
That's the best part. That's amazing. It's like he's meant to. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And it all started with him watching Rounders. And he said in interviews later, he's like, well, one night my wife and I were watching this movie called Rounders. And I was like, oh, I think I want to try.
I want to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, there's a scene in that movie where Matt Damon, he goes, I think it's his teacher or whoever is playing a game. I don't know if you remember the movie well, but his teacher's playing a game, and Matt Damon is there working an event or something, right?
He's watching.
Yes.
And the guys are all playing, and then he magically knows exactly what everybody has.
Everything.
Yeah.
I mean, is there truth to that? Can you really just observe and be like, he was just picking up on everyone's behavior and everyone's everything, that he could actually predict pretty accurately what they probably had?
Well, the short answer is that's Hollywood BS.
Okay.
But the longer answer is a big skill that poker players have to develop is what we call hand reading.
Okay.
So if a player makes a certain bet, you start to think of the range of hands that he or she could have, right? Okay. So it's like, well, maybe she could have pocket aces here, but also she could be bluffing with a hand like 7-5 suited that now has a flush draw.
Gotcha.
Like you lump categories of hands. Like if she's bluffing, she probably has this.
Okay.
And if the opposite of bluffing is when you want the person to call, you're value betting.
Okay.
Right. So you're trying to get paid.
Right.
So if she's value betting, trying to get paid, then she either has this hand or that hand. And then the question is, so is she bluffing?
Right.
Or is she value betting? And then that's your job. Figure out that.
To figure that out.
Yeah.
Man, there is so much more going on. I didn't realize that there was this much to it. To me, it was all like, hey, you got lucky on the flop.
Well, yeah. And there is, there is a wide range of approaches.
Sure.
Right. So you could play poker almost like a slot machine.
Right.
It's like, I'm going to get 2 cards and hope that the first 3 match up.
Right.
If they match up, ding, 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 I win,
That's
right?
me right there.
Yeah. And that's fun.
Right.
That's as fun as playing a slot machine, right?
Right.
But for me, because as I said before, the way my brain is formed, like at one point my friend was like, many, many years ago, a friend of mine said, hey, Clayton, have you ever played golf? And I said, no. He said, well, I'll teach you. Come with me. I'm bored. I want you to go,
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, sure. I have no idea what I'm doing. This guy lent me his golf clubs, and he's like giving me advice. The next thing I know, 6 months later, I'm playing golf like almost every day.
Is that
because
right?
I have an obsessive brain when it comes to games in particular.
Now I got to get good at golf.
I can't just play Scrabble. I can't just sit down with you and like, oh, let's play Scrabble for fun. I'm going to read books on Scrabble. I'm going to try to learn more words. Like, I just, that's how I am.
Wow.
And I think it's because of my upbringing. We always played games. It wasn't just poker.
Yeah.
Any game we played, we would talk about afterwards.
That's
well, this is what you could have done. I won because you didn't do this.
Yeah.
And it's just how I'm wired.
That's really interesting. Did you do that with comedy too when you got involved? Did you start reading and watching everyone?
Yeah. I mean, when I started doing comedy, I was terrible. And I mean, it's debatable whether or not I'm still terrible. But one thing I do is very similar to poker. I record myself and I'll go, well, you can't record yourself in poker, but we remember the hands.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But, when I perform, I go back and I try to rehash it.
Sure.
What could I have done differently?
Sure.
Particularly on nights when something unexpected happens, like there's a heckle or something it throws you off a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, how can I handle that better next time?
What could I have done?
Or just, looking at my old jokes.
Yep.
Like, How can I get more punchlines? How can I make this
Sure.
funnier? Whatever. I can't just, I'm going to go up on stage and see what happens.
See, right, yeah.
I analyze.
Right. That's a reason for your success, though. I mean,
We have to do it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And
And to your point, though, not everyone does.
Right.
Yeah.
And if you're more talented, I think you can get away with not analyzing so much. Like some people are just so funny.
Yeah.
Like you and I have both seen comedians like their debut
Oh, sure.
is unbelievably
Get up
hilarious.
there killing, and
you
yeah.
But for the rest of us, mortals,
right.
we have to put work in.
Exactly. I was at the Comedy Cellar in New York just a few weeks ago, and Chappelle came in and got on stage, and he does that thing now where he gets up and he kind of hangs with you on stage. And it was not only the coolest moment, of my career, but to your point, just watching someone who literally every fifth word was funny.
Like brilliant.
Yeah, just talking to me, talking to the audience, talking to whatever. Just people yelling things every 10 sentences. I mean, you just like was an age joke that took me 10 years to write something like that. It was just it was crazy to watch. Yeah.
So similar to comedy in poker, we don't all start at the same level. Some people have a flair for it.
Yeah.
Some people really know when other people are lying.
Yeah. That's you could see how that would be. And I imagine there are people who are, like you say, really good at people skills, reading people. Other people who are just really good at math and calculating. Right. Yeah.
And the best players are great at both.
You can do both. Absolutely.
And that's why a lot of the really good players I know are actually women. And even though they release statistics every year, only about 3% of the players in the main event
are women,
are female.
Okay.
So the chances that you would have 2 at your table are very slim.
Sure.
Even the chances of having 1 at your table kind of slim.
Right.
So, but what I've found is that the women that stay in this environment, which is male-dominated environment, where many times it's like aggressive behavior, toxic masculinity, whatever you want to call it.
All the things we read about.
Yeah, and the things that women in general don't appreciate.
Sure.
But if they stick it out and stay in this world, they must be pretty good at the game.
Darn good, yeah.
Otherwise, they would have found another hobby.
That's interesting.
Because it's kind of, I hate to say it, but it's not a great environment for anyone.
Right. Yeah, it doesn't, not the healthiest. Well, I see them, when I'm in Vegas to work. I mean, you see them like in sweat, stumbling to the like coffee shop, and they look like they've been up for 30 hours.
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel like they didn't come from church,
Right. Yeah. It's definitely not exactly wholesome.
No.
Yeah.
I can get that.
But my introduction to it was relatively wholesome. I mean,
okay.
But I will
sure,
say this,
your family.
My mother, if she beat you, and she usually beat you, you didn't get the money back. I mean, we really played.
I love it. I love it.
I mean, if you guys want to learn,
I don't have any lunch money
you
to
want to play.
You're on your own.
I mean, you play with your allowance, and if you lost your allowance, that's it. That's what happened to your allowance.
That's amazing. That's a tough love, then, right?
It's a good lesson for children.
Yeah.
If money that you spend or gamble or invest is gone now.
It's gone, yeah.
Right? You don't have that money
It's
anymore.
not yours anymore.
If you keep replenishing, like pressing the reset button, the kid doesn't learn.
Meanwhile, mom's off on a nice vacation. She's in the Caribbean floating around. Well, listen, man, I cannot thank you enough for coming by. This was really interesting to me. Fascinating world that I knew nothing about. But knowing you as a comedian, this is so funny to me that this whole world, I'm done with the show. I went to bed last night, and you went out and played till what time?
Yeah, I was out till 4:30.
I love it.
So the show came down at 9:30. We hung out for a little bit, maybe till 10 or so. And then I was like, all right, well, you guys are all going to bed. I'm going to go try to make some money.
And you did.
Yeah, last night went well. We'll see how it goes tonight. But yeah, it's kind of a perfect job for a comedian is to have a side hustle as a poker player.
Do it right here in Vegas.
But you know what's fun, Mike, is that when I go on poker podcasts, they always want to ask me about comedy.
Is that right?
And when I go on comedy podcasts, we talk
about poker. Exactly.
So at least I always have something to talk about.
Well, thanks for coming by, man. We're going to get ready for our show, and we got a bunch of Super Bowl rubes coming in this weekend, so I hope you make money doing that as well.
It should be a good time. I had a great time on your podcast. I'm having so much fun working with you at Brad Garrett's. So.
Cheers, man. Where can everyone find your stuff if people want to track you down? Facebook or Instagram?
Best is like Instagram or Twitter at Clayton Comic.
Clayton Comic.
Or Snapchat. I'm on everything at Clayton Comic. That's the best way to find me.
Clayton Fletcher is our man today. Thank you for tuning in. We'll catch you next time on Greetings from Somerville.